with it. I don't want to.
All right, let's get you squared up here.
We're dealing with crazy people. Sometimes you don't want to set them off, so you just go with it.
Don't say that. She'll go insane. All right, let me get this. Mike, I didn't comb my hair this morning. Sorry, Mike. So we're going to have to bear with the hat today.
Oh, no.
I told you I got a house full of people.
There, mine's combed.
All right, you ready?
Yes.
Here we go.
Now for something special. The unit is self-contained with its own saddler, farrier, wheelwright and so on. It's a rigorous training dished out who know all there is to know about horses, and it brings results.
We take you behind the scenes now to show just some of the interesting aspects of this training.
Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine, the best podcast to create sounder horses from the ground up. Mike Stine is a registered journeyman farrier with an APF 1 accreditation. On this week's episode, do therapeutic shoes impair circulation of horses' feet? And also looking at circulation of a correctly balanced foot. And also, why should horse owners care about the metabolic disease and testing in horses? All this and much, much more will be discussed to you here on Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. And over my far right side is Mike Stine. How are you?
I'm doing good, Travis. How you doing?
You look good. And today is Memorial Day, so thank you for everyone out there who has served, is serving, or has served in the past. Thank you, everyone out there, for your service, I guess I would say. Mike, so we're fresh off of coming back from the what was the name of the show? I call it the J-Lists.
Well, you can call it the J-List, the J&L Elite Buckeye Event.
Yeah. And so you had Dolly out there, and we had a whole bunch of people that came to the table, and we handed out a lot of magnets, a lot of stickers and stuff. Mike had a table full of people asking him questions about Dolly. And so what did you I always say this anytime we do an event like that. What did you learn? What did you not know going in that you learned when you came out?
I'm not sure.
There was so much information out there.
There was a lot of information and some good clinics, and people missed a good thing if they didn't show up.
It was a huge turnout, and a lot of questions were asked. We were unable because they had a PA speaker going on at all times, but we had everything set up to ask, to record your questions at the booth, but there was so much background noise that unfortunately you just couldn't understand who was asking the questions. But those people got magnets and stickers and stuff for being part of the show. We want you to be part of the show as well. And the way you do that is to go over to equinedynamics.com. And if you have any questions for Mike Stine based on any kind of the biomechanics of horses and where you should start, or if you just have any questions in general about horses, go to equinedynamics.com, fill out the little form at the top of the page, says contacts, and fill that out, and make sure you put podcast in the subject line. And if we read it on the air, make sure you put a return address. We'll get you some magnets and stuff that we were handing out at the show today. Now I have a couple questions for you, Mike. There's one young lady who was talking about, is it Tennessee Walkers? And she kind of did this, I'm going to tell a bad joke. You look to the left, you look to the right to make sure the people that you're going to tell the bad joke is not around you. She looked to the left and looked to the right and looked at me, and she says, I've listened to your podcast, and I know that you, meaning me, Travis, your wife is dressage, so I'm not going to offend you by saying this. She's like, I hate Tennessee Walker people or Tennessee Walker whatever. And I just my ear kind of perked up, and I'm like, I never heard that really in like the horse community, where one group of people absolutely despise the way she despised another group of people. And then she started explaining why she didn't like the Tennessee Walker people. And the two of you had a really good conversation. Now, if I don't want to say recreate it, but tell me exactly why she was upset at what they were doing and your response to that.
Well, there's been a lot of stuff put out there about the big lick horses that wear the huge pad stacks, but their regulations have been changed quite a bit, and they're working on lowering the pad stacks on the walking horses and any of the heavy padded horses. So that is different than what it used to be. I mean, you went for these big, huge stacks to create an action.
Now, when you say stacks, what does that do for the horse?
They're over-exaggerating movement patterns.
Okay.
And that's not always a good thing.
And she was saying that there was a chemical or something that they were using.
That has been outlawed years ago, talking about soaring them.
Okay, and explain that process, because this is a whole new world to me. I mean, I've learned so much. I was telling I've got a house full of family members here for the Memorial Day weekend, and I said, you were coming up here to the studio to do the Equine Dynamics podcast. And they asked me all the questions about the podcast, and I said I've learned so much from our first episode, season 1, episode 1, up till now. So this is a whole brand new thing, this Tennessee Walker, and using chemicals to.
Right. Well, that's something that has been heavily regulated a long time ago. But there was a time in history where they were using chemical burns and assorted other things to create an overreaction, pressure in the shoes, dealing with whatever, to get this over-exaggerated bounce and come off the ground, and the leg just a way exaggerated action. If they find where you've been soring a horse now, there's some heavy fines for it.
Now, I don't understand that process. You said chemically. Are they injecting it like steroids, or are they using
topically?
So they're rubbing like Bengay or some kind of ointment on there, and that chemical seeps through the horse's skin into the bones, or how does that work?
They were putting like a light chain or something around their ankle, and some of them were putting different things. But that over the many years, what they did in the 70s and 80s, they keep regulating it more and more, and if you go to a big show, somebody's inspecting your animal to make sure that hasn't been done, and you can get some real heavy fines for it. I mean, it's under animal cruelty laws. So that's a lot different than some of the stuff that's put out there to people see to upset them about it is not necessarily what's happening right now.
Amy, my wife, she was telling me that it freezes the joints to get a more response, is the way she explained it to me. Right. Is that correct as far as?
I don't know that I can say that for sure one way or another, but it is. It is, okay, my foot's sore, so I'll bounce off of it real quick, and I get a big reaction because of foot sore. But like I say, there have been a lot of regulations put in place, and there's more put in place, and has been changing with the pad work on what they are allowed to do, and over a period of time, each year is less and less and less, so it's going to get it down to what should be manageable, because they're worried about damaging the animals. You don't want to damage any animals for a show.
All right, guys. Well, stick around. Speaking of show, Mike had a huge slide presentation at this clinic that we were at this past weekend. The J&L Elite. What is it? I call it, like I said, it's the J-less.
J-less.
Yeah,
J-less. J-less works.
All right, guys, stick around. I'm going to ask Mike about a couple of slides that he was showing during this clinic. Stick around. You're listening to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. He'll be right back. You good?
Yep.
Look at that face. All right, here we go. Mm-hmm. Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. He was the official farrier for the 2018 World Equestrian Games. He's also had a recent article written about him over at the PassTheWire.com. This is called an article, A Farrier Named Mike Stine, and this is written by Kate Richards. And it goes like this: whether tending to eventing, dressage, or jumping competitors, or highly tuned racehorse, Stine's skill set is technically adapted, while his purpose to the equine is an ancient art. Mike Stine is a journeyman farrier, as we all know, and a practitioner of what historically we have called blacksmiths. In today's parlance, a farrier that works on competition horses is required to have the biomechanics understanding of the entire horse, which begins with the 4 hooves that carry the speed, the dexterity, and the ability to withstand impact are connected to the rest of the whole entire animals' working parts. And Mike's going to have this up on his Facebook page. It's a really good article written by Kate Richards, and there's a big picture of Mike standing by his truck. Look how cute he is.
Oh, just adorable. Just adorable.
And the way you see this article is to go over to Facebook, search for Equine Dynamics Mike Stine, and don't forget, for every podcast we have a matching video as well. Me waving to Mike, Mike waving to me, and you can also see we got a couple visual things here that we're going to have on this week's show, so make sure you go over there and like him over on YouTube as well. We appreciate you guys doing that. Now, speaking of visual effects, you had a slide up on doing your slideshow, your PowerPoint, you're telling all about this and all about that, and you were showing the straight on picture of a horse, and then you had this outline or line drawings, almost
right.
like like if you were to take a pen and paper and put it over a picture and draw the lines that you're supposed to be looking at. And that right there, I mean, you could tell me all day long that horse's shoulder's lower and that, the back is tight here and all that. But when I saw those line drawings to actually make my eyes flow up and down that horse, it just clicked. It just went boom. It clicked in my head. Is this something new that you've done with your presentation? Because I've never seen that before.
That is brand new. Ann Sabo did the artwork, and I was going to have her do more. She does some wonderful artwork. She's done artwork for Kate in the articles that she has done and other projects they're involved in. But yeah, she did those line drawings for me, and we're going to work through the presentation, because once you start breaking it down and you can start getting rid of the background noise and the bird flying by and everything else, it's amazing how much you start noticing. But you can start training your eye to see that, because in my business, I've got to pick up on stuff, boom, boom, boom. And I look at thousands of horses a year. But when that horse comes in, I need to catch what's going on quickly, because then I can start making decisions on what I'm doing with my job.
So when I look at a horse as a horse. When you're looking at the horse, you're looking at it based on the line drawings that you have. Now, do you have these slides somewhere that you can put on your Facebook page so people can, like, the side by side somewhere?
They're not up on Facebook at this point, but we're gonna do some little shorts on YouTube with it.
Oh, that'll be awesome. Because I mean like I said, for whatever reason, a bell just dinged in my head. I'm like, that makes total sense.
Right. It takes some work to train yourself to see. In our minds, we try to make everything the same. You just look at the human face. It doesn't match from side to side. If you take it apart in two halves and you look at the two halves separate, they don't match as much as what people think.
Right.
Horses are the same way.
All right, so right now we're going to talk about do therapeutic shoes impair circulation in a horse's feet? So first of all, therapeutic shoes are put on when, and how would that affect the circulation of the foot? When do you put on therapeutic shoes?
Well, where that was picked up, they were talking about bar shoes, wedge pads primarily. There are certain situations where we need to stabilize a bone column. Think about a horse has suspensory damage, and we need to support the bone column to take stress off the suspensories to allow it to heal. The catch on that is when we're stabilizing the foot, and if you look at the length of a bar shoe out the back, there's a point of support, and then there's a point of leverage against the foot. So where are we with that, and how much do we need to do? And if I've got a pastern that's dropped really hard, I'm going to have to bring that support back further. So then you get some compression in the back of the foot because of that length of that lever arm. The catch is sometimes we need to do things for the rest of the body to heal up.
Careful about bouncing on the thing over there. I know you want to slam the thing down. Damn it, are you listening to me?
Yeah. So there are trade-offs with wedging a horse. If you don't do something about the mechanics, if you put that lever arm on the brake over out at the front of the toe, you've got a big long lever arm working against the center of the rotation, and that horse has to come across it as they're braking over. Well, the longer that lever arm, the longer it takes for them to get the weight out of the pad. If you've got a check ligament, your distal check ligament is stretched or damaged, that foot's going to try to settle right back down to where it was on top of the pad. We bring it up 3, 5, 2 degrees, whatever, it's going to mechanically try to push back down. You get an immediate fix, but over long term, sometimes you can compress the back of the foot and create a worse situation. I'm not going to say I never use wedges, but if I use wedges, I use a lot of mechanics to get the horse to rock up and break compression.
Now, is this something that you're putting on the horse like a temporary until you can get something else fixed, like the hoof physically can grow out to where you can reshape it or do something like that? Or is this a permanent thing? This horse will always have this type problem. You'll always have to have these therapeutic shoes. So you're going to be dealing with lack of circulation down there, I guess is
well, in an ideal world, and there are also things we can do with shoeing that will actually help improve circulation. If you look at Doc Redden and some of these rocker formats and what they've done with the venograms, and there's other ways of checking circulation, on a lot of what they were talking about with the bar shoes and all that has been looked at with, like thermographic imaging. Can you dead prove that with that? Not really, because back many years ago in another life, we used thermographic imaging when I did a little stint at the power company, and the wind blowing and a bird flying by and the sun out or the clouds came up could alter what you got with thermographic imaging. In fact, a horse has been proven more. You bring him in off the asphalt and you shoot it, on a reasonably warm day, walk him in, shoot thermographic imaging, his feet light up red.
So here,
shod or unshod, because they were on the asphalt.
So if you go over to our YouTube channel, Mike Stine Equine Dynamics, you can see this picture right here of a thermal imaging of the foot. So here on the left-hand side, explain what's going on here on the left-hand side as compared to the right-hand side of the picture.
Well, the red is warmer. The blue is, the blues, the greens are cooler areas.
So is the picture A good circulation? Is that what you want, or is that too much circulation or not enough circulation?
Well, let's put it like this. Here's another end of when you're looking at circulation. If I've got a foot that's traumatized, it will light up really bright red. That's not necessarily good circulation.
Well, a lot of times if your body hurts, you put those magnet things on like your wrist or something like that. It's supposed to bring all the iron and stuff in your body to that joint or whatever that hurts, and that the blood heals that joint. I'm assuming that if you've got a lot of blood and stuff in an area, it's trying to heal itself because the body's forcing all the blood down there with all the stuff that's in blood, fancy things that's in blood.
The stuff you need in there, yes.
Right. And that's fixing the horse's foot. So if you see like bright red, that it's an issue because there's some damage there and the body's trying to heal itself.
That is possible. You look at a laminitic horse that's in acute stages, and how is that foot going to look on thermographic imaging, and it depends on where you are in that stage.
And on the right hand side, the foot on the right hand side, now that you've said the left hand side is flaming red, the right hand side looks like it would be normal. That's what you're looking for as far as a horse. You don't see a whole lot of heat down by the feet, which I would assume is good. You see a little bit of heat right here, right above the
coronary band.
That's exactly what I was going to call it. And then, but they look pretty cool as far as horse feet go, as far as the thermal imaging here. And don't forget, you can see this video over on the YouTube channel.
And, with the shoes on or off, with most shoes, you're going to change how the foot moves. There are applications we could put on there to create more movement in the foot. I mean, years ago with some of like your hinge-toed shoes and all that, which you can actually take a saw, like your metal cutting bandsaw and cut part way through the shoe, and the shoe will bend at that point. Now, aluminum will just crack and break. But there are applications where we can make a shoe bend, flex, more than it normally would. There are your Polyflex shoes that they absorb shock and they flex with the foot. So there's a lot of options in shoeing a horse that aren't necessarily brought into where this came from.
Researchers have found that when horses wore egg bar shoes and the palmar surface, the heel areas, they had statistically significantly dropped in minimum temperature compared to when they were barefoot. Does that make any sense?
It's very possible. It would limit some of the movement in the back of the foot. Now, here's the catch.
Mm-hmm.
If I've got a horse, your navicular horse in particular, he's got problems where that deep flexor comes around to the navicular bone. The navicular bone is not getting circulation it should be. Soft tissue damage, whatever it may be, navicular bursts of pain. Yep. So we've got a foot that's lit up real bright because we don't have a shoe on, but he's lame. We do something that supports him and gets some of the pressure off that area, and he's sound. So what's the best situation for the horse? I want to see one sound and happy.
Right.
And we can do all kinds of theories to do anything we want to. And there's a lot of stuff flies around out there because we want to prove our point. Problem is when we're looking at this, how do we disprove it? And most of the time it's not looked at to if I've got something that I'm thinking, do I need to find ways to disprove what I'm thinking? Does that make any kind of weird sense?
It does.
I can come up with all kinds of justification to just prove what I'm doing. And some of it is years of experience. Now, with navicular horses at this point in history, I rarely would put a bar shoe on an egg bar in them. Used to, that was the thing, put egg bar shoes on navicular horses. We got a lot of them happy that way. We found ways with some of your rocker formats like roller motions and that sort of deal where in some of those horses that were not growing foot, we can create them growing foot, and that's directly tied to circulation, and get those horses happier than we could with the egg bar.
All right, guys, stick around. When we come back, we're going to talk about looking at a little bit more of the circulation of a correctly balanced foot. You're listening to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. I'll be right back. So Amy and I was talking about the slides. So Amy and I were talking about we were talking about your presentation because most of us sat there and watched it and stuff. And I kind of said, you were showing the pictures of the horses in the beginning and the dip shoulder and all that. And then, like I said, it literally, the light went on when I saw the pictures of the horse and then the line drawings of the horse. It's kind of like I was sitting there. I wish I would have seen those pictures you can do whatever you want with your thing. I wish I would have seen those pictures, almost like reverse the order that you did the thing. I wish I would have seen those pictures first. So I go, okay, I've got a reference point. And then you show all the pictures of this side of the horse when you had the two sides of the horses,
right?
Because now I know what I'm looking for because you've trained me at the beginning of the thing going, okay, here's the line.
And those horses I put in front of you on those shows, they were extremes.
Right. But when I was looking at them, me not knowing anything about horses, other than you saying this shoulder's low, this shoulder's high, if I had those pictures in the beginning, I was like, I could go, okay, I can now see what he's talking about. I don't know. That was just my personal thing. I was like, I got more impact out of the drawings than looking at the other pictures. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. And we are working on having more drawings done.
Yeah, but that was an excellent presentation. I enjoyed it voluptuously.
Nice. Well, you're a voluptuous kind of a fella.
I am. You ready?
Yes, sir.
Here we go. Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. He was the 2017 Eventing Championship I'm going to say that again. 2017 American Eventing Championship Farrier. And make sure for every podcast we do, you go over to YouTube and you can see us here in the studio. Me waving to Mike, Mike waving to me. You can find him at Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine over on YouTube. Make sure you follow him on Facebook as well. Same monogram. And he's got a whole bunch of pictures he's going to post up there from our time out there at the, what do I call it? The G-Less? The G-Less, right? J-Less. Event that we went to.
J&L Elite.
Yes, J&L Elite. They had a huge event out there at the Union County Ag Center. Great turnout out there. We had a great time. Saw some puppies out there. So they had some little beagle dogs out there they were training, and a whole bunch of different aspects of the whole entire equine community and agricultural community as well.
Agricultural, canine.
Yep, everything like that. And if you have any questions for Mike Stine, go over to equinedynamics.com. At the top of the page is contacts, and fill out the little form there. And in the subject line, just put podcast. And make sure you put a return address when we read your question on the air. We'll send you out a magnet or a sticker or something like that. Mike might have a headshot or two he can sign and send it out to you once his photos come back.
You can use those for Halloween.
Dartboard or something.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So we're going to continue on looking at the circulation of a correctly balanced foot. Now, we were talking about putting egg bars on there and looking at the heat sensors through the thermal. One question I have, those heat thermals, are they portable or do you have to go to a vet for that?
There are portable infrareds.
Are they common, I guess? Because
you can go get you an infrared at your electrical supplier. There is a big difference between a very basic one and a high res infrared, and a lot of them are not high resolution enough for the purpose you would use with a horse.
Like getting down in HD, separating the actual lines in the
right.
color.
Your heat and air guys use them sometimes.
Oh, okay.
Checking for heat leaks.
Oh, yes. Yes, that would make sense. All right, so we're looking for the circulation of a correctly balanced foot.
Yes, we are. People think because a horse is barefoot that they've got the perfect foot. And I'll assure you that a lot of times they don't. Where people get in trouble, the biggest thing I see when horses come in vet clinic, shod or unshod, is the prep in the back part of the foot. If my heels are not in the correct place and they're compressing under and not flexing out, you're compressing the lateral cartilages in the foot, which is a lot of our blood moving part of the foot. If you keep them compressed, even on a barefoot horse, they're not going to move circulation like they should. If the foot can open on impact as opposed to being folded under, but when the heels are too long, everything wants to shove forward. And then you start getting cracks, you start blowing quarters, you start having a lot of those type of issues. There was a question asked to me in a farrier shop one day about quarter cracks and clips. Now, personally, I don't really have problems with them. I get horses with quarter cracks, and we address it, and then we move on. And normally, as far as all this building a bar shoe, do this, do that, a lot of the time it's just getting the back of the foot prepped, and they will start clearing up. When the question was, what do you do when they go back to work and they blow the quarters back out? And I said, well, how have you got the back of your foot prepped? And the answer was, well, I know I got it prepped correct, but with any forcing forward of the heels, it folds them under, it stresses the foot, it drives the toe forward. People look at horses that have constant toe flares, and you dress the flare back, dress the flare back, dress the flare back, and it's always there, but you haven't looked at the driving force. Everywhere there's a pull out, there's a push somewhere. Sometimes it's diagonal, sometimes it's lateral, and sometimes it's driven by misalignments in the bone column. Some of those things we cannot do but so much about. But taking care of those odd pressures in the foot will completely change what's going on with your circulation. It will change what's going on with stresses on tendons and ligaments. And we get so drilled in, more heel, more heel, more heel. There's a point where growing a lot of heel on the foot becomes destructive to the foot. There's a healthy range of heel, and when we start mechanically flexing it under, it's too much.
Now, for a basic horse owner, I don't want to say I'm a basic horse owner, but let's just say here on the property, a basic horse owner, is there a sign that I can see that my horse is not having good circulation in its feet or hooves?
Lack of growth, but if cracks,
you're getting if your farrier's coming out on a regular scheduled basis, it's already been found. But I'm talking about,
hopefully, yes.
I mean, but you've seen, in some of the slides that you're showing, some of the horses that you had to take care of that haven't been touched in years. And, outside of the hooves all looking all crazy and stuff, is there anything else that you need to look for as a start of bad circulation for?
Well, one of it is growth of the foot. The other is distortions in the foot. Any foot that's constantly chasing distortions, there's some pressure problems. And I'll tell you, part of what people get into is the external part of the foot. If we raise heel, it raises the angle. There's an awful lot of horses have too low of an angle. But on the other end, if we raise the heel up and fold that under, internally we can drop the angle. When we get the base of the foot back, it's more about where is that foot positioned in center of rotation. It's not, don't think about lowering the angle. The further back we can get that base under the bone column, the better the bone column is supported. And some of these feet, when those internal structures start opening up and moving, if they're not too damaged, will actually internally raise the coffin bone inside the foot. When you have these feet that have been, and this is there again, shod or unshod, heel's been too long, we're growing heel, they're folding under, and we haven't got back to a solid, healthy base, you're compressing those lateral cartilages, and over years you can cause scarring in the lateral cartilages. And once it's scarred in, it's hard to recover from. The plantar cushion, which is above the frog, is very fibrous. It's fascia. And very little circulation. When you do a dissection, that is almost white. Not a lot of blood in there. So if you destroy that fascia, it tends not to bounce back. Just as if you stretch out that distal check ligament, the set angle of where that foot wants to rest ends up lower because it rests on that distal check ligament. And then if I don't have a wrench, we can stick there and snug that thing back up and get that internal angle to set where it's high enough above sole plane to allow room for your internal structures.
All right, guys, when we come back, we're going to talk about metabolic disease and testing in horses. Stick around. You're listening to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. He'll be right back. You all right?
Yes, sir.
Oops, wrong one. There we go. Back to that one. And this, I'm going to pull this slide for you so you can see it. I need to learn to put this here in front of me instead of talking through it.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Here we go. Mm-hmm. Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine, the best podcast to create sounder horses from the ground up. Mike Stine is a registered journeyman farrier with an APF1 accreditation. Make sure you go over to Facebook there and see that article written by Kate Richards about a farrier by the name of Mike Stine. It's a great article, great read, and that's on the, what was the, hold on. It was on the PastTheWire.com website. You can see that article. Michael posted up on his Facebook page, and make sure you like him over there at Facebook as well. Now, this is a great time to go over to YouTube because every podcast we do, we have a matching video as well. Me waving to Mike waving to me. And this is one of the slides, courtesy of the Greenock, am I saying that? Greenock Farm.
I can mispronounce it just as good as you can.
Greenock Farm veterinarian Dr. Hughes, and part of their presentation out there. So this is basically, well, I guess which screen's here so everyone can see it. Why do we care about metabolic diseases and testing? So, Mike, if I'm going to blow this up for you, and you can, oops, give me one sec. First day on this planet. There. So this is a slide that was presented during another presentation out there at the J&L event that we were at. And this is about Luminitis and metabolic diseases and why we are testing. So take it away, Mike.
Metabolic diseases. Please test. Please. For your horse, too. But
now, when you say metabolic diseases, because me as a layman, I have no idea what that is. If you say test for flu or something like an adult, I understand what that is. What is a metabolic disease? Let's start there.
Well, in humans, we become diabetic. Horses can also become basically diabetic. Insulin resistant, Cushing's, there are a few other metabolic deals that can go on in there, and they start affecting circulation. They affect internal organs. They affect just like a human with metabolic problems.
So it's all around bad.
You don't want it, no.
So how often should you test for these? Is it a once a thing like us as humans, or is it a...
That's a vet discussion. Now, I do see horses that I wish people would test. And I said, have your vet take a look, because that's their job. We see it in the after effects and feed. Horses that are metabolic, there's many times they're in some low-grade laminitis, and people don't notice it until they're over the edge, because the lamina is kind of like your Velcro connection. You know, the two sticky surfaces.
Yeah, the hook and loop, yes.
The hook and loop, yeah. Well, over time, you lose a loop. You lose a loop. Not a big deal, right? You lose another loop.
Eventually, the Velcro don't stick.
Eventually, the Velcro don't stick. And then we can go into from a horse that's in low-grade laminitis to a horse that is into founder, meaning the bone itself is moving, just as a ship sinking, a ship's foundering.
So,
right?
Go ahead.
So then you can get into rotation sinking, other issues, and that becomes life-threatening.
So my mom, just as a side note here, my mom had real bad diabetes, and she had, what is it when your feet are numb?
Neuropathy.
Yes. And she actually broke her toe and had no idea that she broke her toe. She was going to regular doctor visits and stuff, and her toe actually grew Let me change screens here so we can see. My mom's toe actually grew like this weird angle off to the left because she couldn't feel that she broke her toe. 2, she's not getting enough circulation and everything down there.
She's not wanting to heal up correctly.
And it wasn't wanting to heal up correctly. So I'm assuming that this does translate into a horse as well.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, once you start getting so much damage and your circulation problems, they can start going into neuropathy, and you're not seeing the problem as much as it should be because they're not feeling it. I've had horses we worked on that it's like, I promise you, had little to no feeling in the foot. There have been horses where we've had the vet check with hypodermic needles, and there's no response, and they're not even nerve blocked. So then it's like, oh, he's looking pretty good when he's out walking around, even though the coffin bone is disappearing and being eroded away. So they're hiding it. And when it comes out what's actually going on, it's devastating. If we would check these deals early on and admit, oh, no, I know my horse is not metabolic, because people don't want it to be. It's like I've had people get mad, stomp their foot and everything else. My horse is not laminitic. There's no way it's laminitic, even though radiographically it is. They don't want it to be. But at that point, you're way down the road from where things started. If you get ahead of that thing early on, a lot of these situations can be managed before they become the nightmare of advanced metabolic problems, laminitis, organ shutdown, everything else that goes along with it. And now we're in a panic. Our best buddy is in big trouble, and our emotions are running crazy because we're attached to our animals.
I'm gonna read this slide that Dr. Hughes from the Greenock farm veteran provided for us, and it says many other causes of laminitis, including black walnut poisoning, toxic plants, steroids, grain overload, supporting limb and systemic diseases. Regardless of the cause, it's very scary. So one of the things that sticks out in my mind is the grain overload. When you were talking about the people that say they stomp their foot down, my horse is not laminitic or has laminitis or whatever the phrase is, that could be a cause. I'm feeding my horse because I want my horse fat and healthy.
Horses are happy when they're eating, and we want our horses very happy. And we want them to perk up their ears and be happy to see us. And they do that because we're like giant Pez dispensers.
Yes.
Yes. And so what's going on? What do we need to get in check?
What is the black walnut poisoning? Is that an actual black walnut from trees in the area, or is that a terminology for something? Because I've never heard of that.
It is black walnut from the trees in the area.
Okay.
There are different plants that at different stages can be toxic to a horse. I think maple leaves, once they've wilted, if a horse eats them, can be toxic to a horse.
Oh, really? Because we have a bunch of huge storms that whip through here, and they've broken off the smaller branches. So I've got like all these little clusters, like clusters of maple leaves laying like all over the floor. Yeah. And when I move horses from pasture to pasture out on the I almost said middle, the walkway out there, they'll stop and grab and eat them. And I'm like, oh, okay, you want to eat that? I guess you want to eat it. And
well, I think they have to eat a pretty good amount of it. But there are the substitutes, and you can look it up. It's online as far as toxic plants,
right?
And acorns, if they eat way too many acorns, that can become a problem.
I made boiled peanuts for this Memorial Day weekend, and if you eat too many boiled peanuts, you're gonna get kind of nauseous too at the same time.
That's a little different deal, but. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I've done that myself more than once.
Go ahead.
In not checking, people are like, they don't want anything to be wrong with their horse, so they don't want to be blind to it. We do it as humans to ourselves. That great big river, we live in denial. And denial is a nice place until something starts happening bad, but usually once you wait to the point something bad is going on, you're way into it.
Yeah. All right, guys, stick around. We got one more segment. We'll let you get back to enjoying the rest of your day on this beautiful Memorial Day weekend. Stick around. You're listening to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. He'll be right back. You like boiled peanuts, Mike?
Yeah.
I got some up there. I'll let you. They're a little spicy.
That's even better.
Okay. I'm going to go, because they're warm right now. You like them warm, or do you like them just at room temperature?
I like them warm, but I'll eat them either way. It doesn't matter.
I won't. They're on warm right now, so you can have some before you leave. I'll give you some. Unless you don't want
Before we get finished up, I can go hit the funnel.
Okay, I'm hurrying. Here we go.
Because I was going to say, if you're going to go get them, I'm going to the funnel.
Well, go to the funnel. I'll go get them. I'll go turn them on warm. We'll come back and do the last segment. I want you to be comfortable. So I'm going to come back. I'm going to talk about the peanuts real quick, and then you can go ahead and talk about the IPF, and then we'll do what did we learn today, and then we'll just wrap it up.
Right.
Short little 8-minute segment. Is that good?
Yep.
Okay. Here we go. Welcome back to Equine Dynamics. Make sure you follow Mike Stine over there on Facebook. That's Equine Dynamics Mike Stine. He's going to post a whole bunch of pictures from the J&L event that we went to this past weekend, the J&L Elite event thing that we had at the Union County Ag Center. I'll make sure you also follow him on YouTube. He's going to post a bunch of videos up there. And you can see for every podcast we do, we have a matching video as well. There's me waving to Mike waving to me. And that's over at YouTube at Equine Dynamics also as well. And if you have any questions for Mike at any time, you can email him at equinedynamics.com. At the top of the page says contacts. Fill out that little form there. Make sure you put podcast in the subject line. And please put a return address. If we ask your question on the air, if you read your question on the air, we'll send you some magnets and stickers as well. And over to my far hand side, with his eyes got as big as soup bowls when I said boiled peanuts, that is Mike Stine.
Yes, it is.
So you like boiled peanuts?
I like boiled peanuts.
Well, after the show, I got a batch up there waiting for you, so I'll get you some for the ride home. So,
well, thank you, sir.
And you had a little announcement or something you wanted to say?
Yeah, the IAPF, which is an International Farriers Association, they are putting up more and more information. There are farriers, veterinarian members from around the world, some of the best. Horse owners can sign up and find further ed. They're building more all the time. There's some great education. Part of the point of the IPF is we want people to know. The better you know what's going on, the better you should expect, and the better your horses should be. So the best thing a horse owner can have is information and knowledge. That's their power.
And knowledge is power.
Yes, it is.
I think I got a t-shirt there somewhere, or bumper sticker at least. All right, guys, what did we learn today? Therapeutic shoes impair circulation of a horse's feet. Do they?
In certain situations, they can. In certain situations, we have to make sacrifices over another problem.
So it's not a broad brush that, yes, they do.
It's not a broad brush. There are situations where we can definitely improve circulation with a therapeutic application.
And looking at circulation, on the same note, looking at circulation in a correctly balanced foot.
The better the balance the foot is, the sounder your horse is going to be for whatever you do, whether it be dressage, whether it be eventing, whether it be jumping, whether it be your racehorse. And I'm not advocating that every horse out there needs to be a shoe, because there's plenty of horses out there for what they're doing can do very well and stay very sound and be very happy.
Without a shoe.
Without a shoe.
Yes. All right. And we'd like to thank Dr. Hughes from the Greenock Farm Veterinarian for the slide about metabolic diseases and why it's important to test your horses.
Yes. Early prevention is the way to go. You do not want to get into deep metabolic trouble. It's one of those roads I don't want to call. I don't want to have to be involved in it. And the vets don't either, because it's rough, tough, ugly, and miserable. Sometimes we can pull them out of it 2 degrees, but damage is damage. And at this point, I will be working much more at the hospital than I have been. There are a couple of vet clinics that I'm going to be working in-house more than I have been. So maybe we will see you there, but hopefully not for metabolic horses.
We'd also like to thank J&L Elite Feed and Seed for having myself and Mike Stine out there, Equine Dynamics, out to their event this past Saturday. And we hope everyone has a nice, peaceful Memorial Day weekend. And thank you all for your services and everything that you've done. On behalf of Mike Stine over there,
have a good day.
My name is Travis Holmes, saying see you next week.
Just close your eyes and dream, little pal.
There you go.
Cool.